Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm Kaylee King-Balentine, as he mentioned. I head up the T-Brand Studio International team that is based in London. We also have a small team in Paris as well. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is how we are selling branded content and how it's changing and how we're selling media is so different than it used to be. So I think a lot of people know the sort of good old days of RFP shows up on your door. It has the key pillars. It has the key markets. It has some sort of vague language about how we want to do something that's never been done before, is big and splashy. So let's say, for example, this RFP comes in and it's for a shiny new men's watch. Traditionally, the seller would think, OK, I have this great newspaper. I have the New York Times, super influential. People love the New York Times. Where should I put this ad from this RFP? So let's think. Men's style. That makes sense. It's a shiny new men's watch. Let's put it in a strip ad. Let's put it on the back of the main news page. Or, if we're going to get crazy, let's put it on the home page. And if the client doesn't have enough money to put it on the home page, let's think about an article page. Let's put it on a style article page. And advertiser sends the ad delivers, get money, get paid, everybody's happy, repeat the process. Now that is still happening, but it's changing. And it's changing in a really exciting way. And for me particularly, I'm on the creative team. So selling in the traditional way is not at all my forte. So this new way of selling is exciting because it's including the creatives and the ad product folks right away up in the beginning of the sales process. So today, there is no RFP. So a lot of times we are called in, or we use the relationships that the sales folks have created with their agencies, with their clients. They know that something big is coming up. They know that they have really interesting clients that want to tell really interesting stories. So we start thinking. And the way that we're approaching this is we get in a room. We get in a room with the client, with the agency, with the salesperson, with the T-Brand Studio, with the ad products folks, and we sit and we do what is essentially a live RFP briefing. So in that meeting, we start to talk about what is this brand, what is important for this brand, how is this brand perceived, how do they want to be thought of differently, how can we help them, and how can we do it through creative and through the products that the New York Times has uniquely in the marketplace. And in that meeting, a lot of times the conversation that happens is the same as that old RFP. I want something that's never been done before, or I want something that you have never done before as the New York Times. I want to create something completely different. And I want to do something that is unique to the New York Times specifically. And how can we work together to convey that message? Also, it's got to reach people. And it's got to reach people as effectively as social. So what do we have to offer that's going to get the same amount of viewers as if you're going to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? Another question, or another request that we get a lot is it's got to be big. And a lot of people have got to see it. And it's got to be on a lot of different platforms. We want it to be as big as if we're working with the TV network. And we want to look at our data as a brand and match it up with your data as your own brand and reach the right people. So is that C-suites? Is that luxury buyers? What is that? And use the New York Times data that we have and match it up with the brand's data. Another request that we get a lot is we want this to make headlines, and we want this to be press-worthy. So there's a lot of different ways to get there. And in that RFP briefing, you have all the right people in the room that can help brainstorm and help deliver a campaign that can answer all of those questions for the client, but also make headlines and get them press. And you do that through trying new things, but also trying amazing creative, as so many creative agencies have done in the past. Also, interestingly enough, we get asked by the way, I don't want it to have any ads. And that can mean a lot of different things. So, of course, all the things that we're making are ads, but we get the request from clients a lot that they don't want the consumer to feel like they're being spoken at. They want to have a conversation with their consumers. Or if it's B2B, they want to be having a conversation rather than somebody just see the ad and bounce. They want people to spend time with the ad, be influenced by the ad, start thinking about their company in a totally different way. So how are we doing that? We're doing that through what we are calling the rise of programming. And what that means is we want a consumer to look at the content as entertainment and as a piece of content that they want to share with their friends, and not necessarily say, OK, this is a great pack shot of a watch, but tell a deeper story that maybe the watch is there and the watch is present in the piece, but it makes you start thinking bigger about the brand than you ever have before, and it makes you start respecting the brand, and at the end of the day, the goal is you buy that watch because you respect the brand. So the way we do this in terms of process is strategy. Strategy comes first. So strategy is happening in that RFP meeting with the client, the agency, T-Brand Studio. So what's the strategy here? Who are we reaching? What's the story we're telling? Why are we choosing one platform to distribute versus another, et cetera, et cetera. Then we get on to the creative. What is this going to look like? And an interesting thing that we've been doing with your creative is we have been starting to make creative that is appropriate per platform. So maybe, let's take Facebook, for example. We know that a lot of people, when they're on Facebook, I think all of us are probably guilty of this, we don't turn the sound on when we're watching videos. So how are we making videos that are just as impactful but have no sound, and also play into this bigger strategy? So maybe Facebook has its own creative execution. Maybe Instagram has its own creative execution. Maybe we do some sort of banner ad or homepage takeover that has its own execution. And then maybe we do a desktop version. And we have to start thinking that way in order to get as many people to engage with the content as possible. Lastly, importantly, distribution. Where is it going? How are people going to see it? Where are they going to share it? How do we track that? What are the metrics that we're looking at? And for us, those metrics are how long are people staying on the page? How many video starts are you getting? How long into the video are they watching? How deep into the page are they scrolling? All of those kind of metrics we are looking at, and we're optimizing as the campaign is live. So in terms of how we work at the New York Times specifically, so we were getting a lot of advertisers coming to us saying, I really, really love what your newsroom is doing. They wrote this great piece about this bank. Do you think that they could write a great piece about my bank? And of course, the New York Times is, we've been around 165 years. Our backbone is storytelling. We are, I like to think, the best paper in the world, and we are known for our journalism. And so if we were to call the finance editor in the newsroom and say, hey, this bank really would love if you could write a nice piece about them, they would very quickly hang up on us and never allow us to call them back. So what we did was we built T-Brand Studio. And this was 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. So what we did was we built a team that was made up of folks who had the journalistic chops that could write stories in the same way that the newsroom would approach a story in an editorial way. So we have a team in New York that is built of journalists, ex-journalists. We have folks from Business Week, Condé Nast, Huffington Post, Associated Press. So all over the place, know how to write a story, know how to find the soul of a story, know how to report, investigate, all of that kind of stuff, because we wanted to be out in the market telling brands, you love our journalism, you love what our newsroom is doing, we can give you that. We can give you advertising feeling stuff as well, but we, at the Times, want to be able to offer you what you've been asking us for years and years and years, and we always said no. So now we were able to say yes by building this team. So we have this team of editors, we have a team of designers who most of them come from a publishing background. We have a video team that is, we mostly focus in high-end documentary style work. We have, I think importantly, and a model that we have taken from the agency world is we have an agency services team or account services team that works directly with our agencies and clients and makes sure things get out the door in time for launch so that a client or an agency isn't necessarily dealing directly with the editor or whatever it is. So there's kind of a project manager on every piece. In April of 2014, there were 5 of us in New York. Myself, Sebastian Tomic, who spoke last year, if any of you guys were here, and then 3 other folks. We were a really small team, lean, going after big stories. We did sort of our coming out party, I would say, in the studio was a piece we did with Netflix for Orange is the New Black about women in prison. And that was an editorially driven piece. We did documentaries. We went to prison. I spent a week in prison voluntarily. And that really sort of put our footprint in the market as approaching stories in a different way than a traditional creative agency would. And today, we are 100 people strong. We have a big team in New York. Like I said, we have a team in London. We have a team in Paris. And hopefully soon a team in Asia. I hope so. And it's just showing that there's demand, and there's demand out there for great storytelling and doing advertising in a different way and getting people to engage with the content a little differently. So I'm going to walk through some of the case studies that we've done and explain to you how we got there. But before I do that, I want to show you a reel of some of the work that we've done over the last 2.5 years. And you'll see in the bottom left corner of the video, there's the brand, so you can see the work that's for them. So that last bit you saw about the snake sort of jumping into the frame was a piece that we did with GE. And it was our first sort of foray into the virtual reality world. And this is a good example of a client coming to us and saying, we want something you've never done before. We want something that's going to make press. All of this program ticked all of those boxes for us. So they wanted to convey the message and get people thinking about how GE works in machine-to-machine communication. But of course, machine-to-machine communication kind of sounds scary and kind of sounds like the robots are going to take over the world. So the way that we told the story was by telling it through nature and through biomimicry and talking about how animals communicate to each other in nature, and GE is taking inspiration for that. So the snakes warn the frogs when it's going to flood, things like that. So we made this animated film that was showing all of that, and you kind of go underwater, and it's a really fun experience. The next example I want to give you is a program that we did with Philips last year that we're just starting up again this year. And Philips, I think most of us have always thought of Philips as an electronic company, light bulbs, et cetera. But they are very much switching their business to become a healthcare tech company. And they wanted to draw awareness of that. And they wanted to do it through great storytelling, through entertainment, through having a conversation with their users. So what we did was we worked with Philips to identify key pillars that Philips had products that would support those pillars. So we did aging, we did breathing disorders, and we did sleep. And for the sleep piece, I'll give you an example. For all the different pieces, we did articles, we did videos, but the sleep piece I think is a good example of how you can tell a story in a different way. And that was, Philips said, okay, find somebody who has sleep apnea and let's tell their story. And so we found an Icelandic fisherman who sleeps maybe 2 hours a night, and he lives a very stressful life. And we told his story through film. And that film started getting pickup in the filmmaking community, started getting pickup in the ad press, but also the press, started winning awards at film festivals. So it went way beyond the reach of a targeted banner ad, for example. The last example I want to give you is one that launched yesterday that we've been working on with UBS. UBS has a Nobel Laureates program, and they are rolling out new Nobel laureates that they want to draw attention to. I think it's by month. And the particular Nobel laureate that we were working on is a guy who does a lot of work in artificial intelligence. So then we, as T-Brand Studio, made a story about the leading minds of artificial intelligence and where it is today and how it's evolving. So we went to Japan and we met Professor Hiroshi Ishiguro, who's making robots that look like us. And they're hoping that in 15 years they're going to be as smart as us and they're going to live among us. So it's a fun way to tell a story and also draw awareness to a program that they're doing and start thinking about UBS as more than just a bank, but somebody who's doing some really amazing stuff in other spaces as well. So in the last 2.5 minutes that I have, I just want to leave some key takeaways for how we approach content at the New York Times. And to build great creative that blends the brand messaging, aka the product shot, with great storytelling, you have to work together. It doesn't work for us at T-Brand Studio if we sort of set off and work in our own silo and then say, hey, here's our creative, what do you think? We've done that before, it doesn't work. What we have to do is we have to get in that room, in that RFP process, and work together. And as fun and I guess entertaining as it seems to think that we're pitching like in Mad Men, we're not anymore. We're having a conversation and we're taking real-time feedback and we're applying that to our creative so that our brands are happy and know exactly what they're getting. Secondly, this is more for brands, I think, than anything. Don't trip over your own feet. And what I mean by that is you know your brand better than anybody else, and you're an amazing brand. I'm sure you're an amazing brand. I'm sure you have amazing products. But let's think bigger, and let's not get caught up in our messaging that many brands sort of communicate internally, and everybody kind of knows what they're talking about. But we have to think externally, and how do we communicate that in a way that a big, large audience is going to understand? And lastly, I think there's a little bit of this in all of us. Assume your audience probably doesn't like advertising, and then surprise them. Our goal is to get people to say, holy cow, did you see what Philips did? Holy cow, did you see what Volvo did, what GE did? And not say, oh, it's just another ad. So that's all I have. Thank you.